just generally, we're doing a discussion on should socialists stand against Labour, and you're standing for TUSC against Labour in this by-election in Erdington. Why do you think socialists should stand against Labour?
Well, I think the gap between the rich and the rest has never been wider for decades. And yet at the same time, the gap between the establishment parties has never been narrower for decades. TUSC was launched, co-founded by the late Bob Crow, who was General Secretary of the Transport Union, the RMT, in January 2010, when the 13 years by then we'd had of a Labour government under Tony Blair, and then Gordon Brown, the illegal wars, the privatisation, all the other issues, meant that large numbers of working people thought there should be a challenge to that agenda. And we're back in that position again. It was great when Jed got elected in 2015 and tried to move the Labour Party in a more radical direction. And the 2017 manifesto got 3.5 million extra votes, the biggest climb in Labour's votes since Clem Attlee's Second World War. Then there's a 2-year period of sustained and vicious character assassination. Jeremy's got rid of. Keir Starmer's been there 22 months, and 150,000 people have left the Labour Party because they were inspired by Jeremy and they're dismayed by Keir Starmer. And we think that Labour's move to the right again, or back to the right again, has to be challenged when councils are making cuts, when they're strike breaking. Labour councils are strike breaking, as they are in Coventry against Unite members, literally as we speak. When they've got no ambition, they don't challenge the Tory agenda because they agree with the Tory agenda. I mean, I'll develop this point if I get the chance, but the energy crisis which is facing people at the moment, hundreds and hundreds, some cases thousands of pounds more in electricity bills. And Rachel Reeves 10 days ago is putting forward a plan less than Rishi Sunak brought out a couple of days ago. She wanted £200 off the bills. He's offering with strings 350 off the bills. She wanted £6 billion. He's doing nearly 10 billion. And on that other Andrew Marr show, just before the Labour conference last September, Keir Starmer rules out public ownership of the energy companies. Oil and gas have paid £200 billion in dividends to shareholders in the last 10 years. We should be using their profits through public ownership to cut energy bills. And that's not coming from the establishment parties. So we're putting socialism back on the agenda at the ballot box.
But do you think a Keir Starmer-led Labour government is preferable to a Tory government?
Look, if I can answer that with a trite joke, it's like lying in a hospital bed and the surgeon coming in and saying, I've got good news and bad news. The bad news is I'm going to have to take one of your legs off. The good news is you get to choose. And that's what's on offer at the ballot box. Blue Tories, red Tories, yellow Tories, they're all saying to working people, at a time when the average family, with the energy that I've mentioned, the council tax rises, the national insurance rises, the food price rises, the petrol rises, and everything else, are facing £2,500 cut in living standards at the moment. None of them parties wants to defend working people's living standards. Nobody wants a £15 an hour minimum wage or a 50% increase in benefits, both of which are central in our campaign in Erdington at the moment. So it wouldn't make much of a difference. Look back at the last Labour government. We've got now hundreds of institutions, hospitals, schools, roads, prisons, bridges that were in a mortgage to. My big hospital in Coventry under Labour was going to be built originally for modernised for £60 million, eventually built for £394 million under PFI on a 35-year deal that's going to cost us £3.5 billion at the end of it. Now, Labour's wars, its privatisation, its defence of the market, its defence of capitalism puts it exactly on the same path. And the shades between the leaderships of the main parties aren't worth deciding on in a general election. We have to build something new. We have to build a new party that's rooted in the organisations and communities of the working class. Labour had aspects of that in the past. It doesn't now. We've got to start and build it.
Would TUSC stand a candidate against a sort of socialist Labour MP or candidate? So supposing John McDonnell or someone like that was standing, would TUSC, do you think you'd be up for standing against him, or would you not stand against him?
So we were launched in 2010. By 2015, you wouldn't know it, but we were, in terms of candidates, we were the 6th biggest party in the country. We stood 135 parliamentary candidates and 619 council candidates in 2015. Then Jeremy was elected in September. We stood down every parliamentary candidate in 2017 and 2019. We didn't stand against any Labour candidate, right or left. The council candidates we stood against were those who were leading the council cuts for Labour on local councils. Jeremy's gone. That era is over. So as far as we're concerned, we're standing in order to build a new party of the working class against all the establishment parties. But if there is someone who is a Jeremy supporter who puts forward basic socialist policies, we're not going to stand against them. We've never done that. We've written to every council candidate of Labour that we've stood against in the past and said, are you a supporter of Jeremy Corbyn? Do you agree with public ownership of rail, of mail, of water, of basic utilities? Would you get rid of tuition fees? Do you want to see a big programme of council house homes building? Do you want to see road landlords reined in with compulsory registration and control over rents and all those basic things that Jeremy was putting forward in 2017 and 2019? Any Labour representative who's a supporter of Jeremy does that. We want to see a fair crack of the whip. We want to challenge us. Look, in the council elections in May, there are 6,700 seats up. 148 councils in England, all of Wales, all of Scotland, all of London, all of Birmingham. We stood 600 in 2015. I'd like to think we can stand more this year, but even if we do, there's still going to be 5,700 seats where at the moment we haven't got any left candidates. So no, we're not running after, but I will say this, that left MPs in the Parliament are in their weakest position that they've been for generations, and they are reduced at the moment to being a bit like prisoners smuggling a note through the bars of the prison saying it's bloody horrible in here, you know. It really, really is. What ought to happen is Jeremy, the leaders of the left unions, the Socialist campaign group, ought to call a conference, invite working class parties and organisations to attend and have a serious discussion about rebuilding a socialist alternative in this country. But no, to one line answer your question, no, we wouldn't put your candidates against Jeremy's supporters.